Ish. No, that's not good.
It's all right.
It's fine. You don't
I'll
need it.
just put mine.
We're good.
You good?
So basically, this looks like we're in like some creepy basement, like on like Ghost Hunter show. Oh, cool. So we did a couple different paint effects, and sorry for the inversion mirror mode, but whatever. And I'll put this paper that we made over at the island, which has all the supplies. But basically today, you're going to get a practice sheet of paper. So you're going to get a really cheap newsprint paper to practice and experiment with the media today before we give you one piece later on of really good quality Fabriano hot press watercolor paper. And if you're like, I don't know what that means, just know it's really good paper and it'll be way better. It won't warp. It handles the media, which means paint and the spot, a lot better. Fabriano is actually where the whole idea of a watermark was invented several hundred years ago. So it's in Italy. It's cool. You should go there someday. Or not. I don't care. Anyways, so we'll give you good watercolor paper later, but this has been done on good watercolor paper. So if you don't get these exact effects on the newsprint, don't worry about that. Yeah. It's a little bit different, but you can at least get the general vibe of like how the media works and whatnot. So there's a couple different things I'll show you. The difference between what happens if your paper is wet before you put the watercolor paint on there. If the paper is dry before you put the paint on there, it makes a difference between how the paint works. If you get little puddles of paint, you can blow them around and get these really spidery kind of thin tendrils. That said, we are in a different era, so you can't do that near other people. So we're not going to blow things with a straw. Really, blowing is discouraged because it turns out things projecting from your mouth is kind of the antithesis of what we have to be doing right now in life.
Did you find some straws though?
I did not.
To do outside?
I ended up not, but maybe if we go outside, I could find some still. I'll look. Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good point.
Do you want me to look?
Sure. Sure.
I'm going to go on a hunt for straws.
Cool. Have fun, Mrs. Roberts. We'll miss you. Okay, so I'm going to show you a couple things real quick just so you guys know how this works. So if you don't know how this works, I've got over at the island over there, we've got watercolor paint sets. They're pretty cheap. These are like the old school basic elementary school watercolor sets, but they do the job. We do also have some different inks. So they're in these little bottles. A little goes a long way. We also have some iridescent inks, which are shiny. So they'll add some like sheen and copper to your inks. We do have these like plastic paint palettes. So if you're going to be painting a lot, you might want to grab one of these. That way it can just contain all the water and the paint and you can work in them and then dry them out when you're done. We do have some oil pastels, and the cool thing about oil pastels is since it's oil-based, hey, focus, buddy. There we go. You can do oil pastel and then watercolor over it, and the watercolor will bead up and roll off of the oil pastel because, you know, oil and water, not friends. And then we've also got some other things, like we've got this alcohol spray. It's basically a hand sanitizer, but in a spray. I'll show you what that does. We've got some salt, different sizes of salt. I just poured some in a little cup. We got water cups over there, and then lots of different paint brushes. So the key today is just to like explore what the media does. My advice to you when working with the media is, you know, I got like 2 different brush sizes. That way I can mess with it in different ways. So I'm just going to get my brush wet. And then again, I would tap it against the inside edge just to get the excess water off. But please don't flick it off the side. I hate when people do that. So just, it's wet, just touch it to the side, the extra water comes off. And then really that'll make a difference in terms of like how much you rub it in the paint then affects, you know, how dark your color is if you enrich. So like if you really kind of work at it, and again, you're only using the tip of the brush. Please do not grind the metal part down near the paint, but you're going to go in, and then if I kind of work in there for a bit, obviously, you know, it's a bolder, deeper color. And so you can kind of control that. So when it's still wet, then you can always go back in and add to it and let the paint kind of flow and move around. And then again, I'll show you sort of the difference being if my paper had been wet ahead of time. So I'll wet this down a little bit. Still got a little color in there. My apologies. If I make it the paper damp, You guys see that at all? And then I go in there, I can just kind of like, you know, I can do some strokes, but they'll kind of like diffuse and move a little bit. And I can kind of just like sort of add to it and let it bleed and drip. Sometimes you might want to turn your paper vertically or move it so it kind of drips and flows in different directions. You can also, you know, grab a dry brush and just kind of like flick the paint around if you want. You know, and get some effects.
Videotaping?
That way, I am,
Great.
yes. Or tap it against something. You can even use your little finger to, you know, flick it. Yeah. And get some cool spray that way. I don't know, but again, you're just trying out a lot of different textures. Just be conscious of the people around you so that you're not spraying paint on them. That's not cool. The other thing when paint is wet, we did get a little bit of salt. Sometimes you can sprinkle salt on there, and that will that'll repel the paint slightly. Or you can do, again, like I said, alcohol spray, which doesn't look like it does much, but then it causes, alcohol dries very quickly. So where it hits the water, that area then dries out faster and then creates like a little speckle away, and then the colors kind of collect around it a little bit. So you'll see, you know, the pigment gets absorbed and sucked in towards the salt, and you get this sort of fine little detail. Again, if you want to take your paint outside, you can go out there. I'm just gonna get like a blob of dark paint color.
Do you want a straw?
Oh, do you have one?
I can
Thanks.
do that. Yeah. And then I just cut them up.
Thank you. So we got these little hat straws that are individually wrapped. Please do not share them, obviously, for
Goodness no.
ugh. Like that's true in all times of life.
Right.
Got a little straw, and I can go down. Oh my gosh, is my face gonna be on this?
Yep, that sure is.
That's so embarrassing. I don't care.
Get some like kind of like spidery looking.
Yeah, you just get these thin little filaments.
Yeah.
You can also, you know, you might want to get, using the ink dropper, I don't know if I've opened this one before. You can get a little squeeze, so it's got this little dropper, and you might want to put like one drop down. A little pigment goes a long way, but then again, you can spray it around. This is kind of hard to do with all mine. And it can kind of mix with stuff. I don't know. So you can kind of do it, or you can just get like one drop and then brush it around. So the pigments are a little bit more concentrated. So I painted some wet. Oh geez, that made a crunching noise. That's probably not good. But I can just do a drop. And again, one drop can go a really long way, and it can do some cool diffusion and whatnot. And I can just kind of blow it around if I want to like get different effects. Or I can dip my brush in it and add a little bit. But you're just gonna want to kind of see what it can do. We do have a sponge, a couple sponges, so you can kind of like sponge at it if you want to do some like sponge painting. You can do dry brushing, which is when you know, the paint's pretty sticky and you don't use much water, and then it goes on there a bit more. It's still kind of wet, but that might give you a bit more sort of a brush stroke type feel. So it really depends on what you're going for. My advice is to have a lot of different things. We told you before not to worry about texture because not to worry about color. Color is not super important because you can change that in Photoshop. What I'm going to ask you to pay attention to is texture. So yes, texture. Value, so I have a range of darks and lights. And shape, interesting shapes with the media. So a variety of shapes, a variety of values, a variety of textures. That's going to be really, really important. You can play with the oil pastels. Keep in mind they do smear if you really want to work at them. Or again, you can do a little something and then if you paint over it. Let me do this differently. So I could take like a yellow, which is light colored, and some dark blue. and brush over it, and it repels the water, right? So you can have things that exist within a darker background or a lighter background or whatever if you want. But really today is about experimenting and trying out different things so that then you really master how to get the effects you need to get for your project. That's most of what I want to say. What else am I missing?
Yeah, no, just keeping in mind, like, you know, because you should have an idea of what photo you're going to use by now, right? Because we've talked about you finding a photo to have for this project and what kind of photo you're going to use. So you should have an idea of that already. And you should have an idea, hopefully, what you want to do with the paint in combination with that photo. So just keeping that in mind, but certainly, you know, trying out lots of different techniques so that you can see what might work with your photo and what might not work.
Yeah.
But just keeping in mind the photo that you're going to use.
Let's see if I can get this to drip the way I want it. Sometimes that's hard. There we go. We'll get it. So yeah, just play. Use gravity. It'll be your friend. But
Yeah.
it's just boring. Gravity's your friend.
But if you need to take your mask off to blow the paint around a little bit, you might want to take it outside. So we're going to talk about where we're going to be set up.
I did not at all.
Okay. So we have some paper on the floor, which you might have seen when you came in. There's 2 long sheets taped down to the floor over on this area. So if you just want to sit on the floor and just, you know, paint, please make sure that you're giving yourself at least 3 feet between each other, and just kind of like staggering as far as like each person on, you know, people on either side of the paper. Make sure you're not directly across from each other because the paper's not that wide. So make sure you're staggering, okay? So not directly across, right? Staggering. And at least 3 feet apart. There's also paper on the floor out there in the hallway. And then my room is open, the room that we always walk through to get outside. So you can also, if you want to work at a table, you can work at any of the tables in there. I don't have them covered at all, so just make sure when we go to clean up, we just want to double check the tabletop and see if there's any paint left behind on the table, and then clean that up before we go, okay? But you can go outside, you know, the same door that we go outside for our break, you can go outside there, and on the concrete outside my door that goes to the outside, you can do some of those techniques using the straw if you want to try that out. Okay, do that outside and again, away from everybody else.
Yeah.
Cool.
There's one other thing I wanted to say. I just realized. Keep in mind, did I paint anything that was like objectively identifiable? Did I paint a tree? Or so sometimes we look over and someone's like, "Here is my dog," and I paint it. I mean, we're not painting a thing. Textures, effects, so textures, shapes, value. Abstract. It's not. It shouldn't look like anything. So you're not painting a picture of something. If that was not clear yet.
Yeah. And make sure you write your name either right or in the corner using the brush. You can paint your name on there. How many pieces of paper are they getting today? 2?
You can get the newsprints over off to the side of that little island area. Yeah. So get like 2 sheets. Get one, and then go and get another one if you need it.
Yeah. And then, when you're finished, there's a drying rack over here. Oh, you have some mats in here as well.
I should probably get rid of those.
I know. It's best to start with the drying rack and you start at the bottom, put pieces of paper in there, and then just kind of go up from there so that they can dry and not get stuck together and we don't have it spread all over the room. So they'll go in the drying rack. You can put your first piece in there and then get a second piece if you want. Just make sure your name is on it. So Friday, when you come back in, you'll be able to find yours. We'll pull them all out. We'll probably pull them out. I don't know. Maybe we'll leave them in there.
Yeah, we'll see.
No, we have 2 belts. You have a second.
Yeah. I do have
So we
another
probably
box.
have to pull them out. Okay. So we'll have them for you. Anyway, we'll get them dry and then we'll pull them out and stack them up and then you'll be able to find yours.
Yep.
Okay?
Cool.
Questions? I think that covers it.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's, I'm going to have you guys go